Good evening, everybody, or good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Yeah, it's another great day. We are good to be live again. Um, I want to once again apologize for my internet the last time. Kindly pardon me for that. So because of what happened the last time, we would go over everything again. And I also realized that a few people had raised issue over the path. I think for majority of them, it was the Bootstrap. I think their Bootstrap file wasn't linking very well. So we'll go over everything again. So let me clear my screen so that we have the default. Yeah. Okay. So I think up to this stage, we all know. Okay. So let me clear the links also. So up to this stage, we all know, how we can get to this stage, or we all know every single tag that we've referenced here. And so to start with, I said that we are using Bootstrap 4 for our session. And so to get Bootstrap 4, you need to download. There are two ways of getting Bootstrap. Either you use what they call CDN. CDN basically means that the libraries are stored on some cloud server somewhere. So you just reference the cloud server to your page. With CDN, you don't have to download anything. And so if you go to Google, and so let me go to Google. So if you go to Google and you just search Bootstrap, Bootstrap 4, so you can see the CDN Bootstrap 4. It will give you the CDN links to Bootstrap 4. And I must also say that there are several sites where you can get Bootstrap links, but I most of the time would recommend the original or the official Bootstrap page, which is the getbootstrap.com. That's the first one that is shown, and because that's the original Bootstrap page. So with other sites, for instance, if you decide to use W3 schools, at a point when they've moved on to another version of Bootstrap, they tend to change their URLs and stuff. And so when you have your URL, maybe an old project you did, and you use the CDN, and the CDN is from some of these sites, when they change their server URLs, it affects your work because your work cannot fetch the files from their servers again. But with Bootstrap, you are sure that it's going to be there for a very, very long time. So I would always suggest or recommend that we use getbootstrap.com because that's the official Bootstrap site. And then when we come here, we can anytime change the versions of Bootstrap we want by using the navigation. They have this version there. You see V4. When you click on it, you can change it to an older version or a newer version. But like I said, we are using Bootstrap 4. And I said we are using, even though there's Bootstrap 5, we are using Bootstrap 4 because Bootstrap 5 is relatively new, but Bootstrap 4 has a lot of, Bootstrap 3 and 4 especially have a lot of resources that we can fall on for assistance or help, and it's a bit also more stable because it has been there for a long time. They've had time to work on it, so it's relatively stable as compared to Bootstrap 5. And so that's why we are using Bootstrap 4. And also with Bootstrap 5, it is more simplified. So I must say that Bootstrap 5 is easier to use, but with Bootstrap 4, you get to really understand a lot of the classes of Bootstrap, and it helps you going forward to really appreciate what Bootstrap does to your work. So that's why we are sticking to Bootstrap 4. So on the Bootstrap 4 page, if you want the CDN, if you can see my screen, this particular link is the CDN. So we can copy this link and then you paste it in your header tag. So if we do this, we have Bootstrap 4 on our page, but we are using CDN. So what happens is we have to constantly be working on the internet. That is the only drawback of the CDN. Even though the CDN version is light, you always need internet to run it. But we can also download the Bootstrap files itself. If you come to the same page, there's a download button where we can download the Bootstrap file itself. So we click on the download button here, and then it would give us automatically load for you to download. And so once I have already downloaded it, so that's the download. I have already downloaded it, so I'm not going to download it again. But then when you download it, please copy the Bootstrap folder into your file, your project folder. So this is our project folder. Our project folder is Geospatial Developers. I don't know how each of us named ours, but what I have named mine is Geospatial Developers. And we said that there are standard ways of arranging our files in the folder. We made mention of the fact that normally developers tend to use index as the name of the very first HTML page that will run. It doesn't mean that you can't give it any other name. Any other name will work for you, but normally index helps algorithms, and it helps search engines, even especially, to quickly locate the very first documents on your page. Then we said that we can create an asset folder where we would store all our files and resources in there. And so we created the folder assets, and in the folder assets, we have our Bootstrap folder, where the one we just downloaded, which has the Bootstrap files, we have it in our assets. And we also created a page for our CSS and our images in there. We can rename this as IMG. So we can have IMG in here. And then for our JavaScript folder, which you'll be doing later on, I also said others can decide to bring all these folders out, so they wouldn't have assets folder. We just have all these folders there. So that's where we got to. And so now let us start to put some meat into our HTML. And so let me reference my links again. So I'll do that by, mind you, we have the assets folder first, because, and you see, I didn't bring any slash or something, because you see the HTML and the asset folder are in the same directory. So if I'm referencing the asset folder from the HTML, I can quickly straight ahead start from the name of the folder I'm navigating into. So first, we are already here. This is the HTML. So the navigation starts from this folder. And I'm saying that from this particular location, first locate a folder or a directory called assets. And then from the assets directory, move inside and then look for another folder called Bootstrap. Look for another folder called Bootstrap. So from the assets, we enter the assets and we look for a folder called Bootstrap. Okay. And please be mindful of the spelling. And so we say that we would also enter the Bootstrap folder and look for a folder called CSS. Yes, so when we get to the CSS, we'll also enter the CSS folder to find the Bootstrap file we are looking for. And I explained that there are two major Bootstrap files that you need. That is the bootstrap.css, this one, and the bootstrap.min.css. All the other Bootstrap files you see here, they are referenced already in the bootstrap.css and the bootstrap.main.css. Now, the difference between these two is that bootstrap.css is for developers. And so it has the usual spaces that you see when you are writing normal CSSs. So normally it's allowed for people who would want to edit Bootstrap so that it is arranged and formatted in a way that it's easier to identify classes and edit them. But mind you, because it is also structured in this way, it adds a few, kilobytes to the site. But kilobytes are not anything to be worried about, so that's fine. So basically, that's why we have the bootstrap.css. Then we have the bootstrap.main.css. The MIN simply means it is minified. And minified here means that the code has been compressed into just a single line. And so if you look at this, the Bootstrap code has been compressed into one single line. So all the codes are in one single line. And this one is done for normally people who are not going to edit the code. So that is why it is minified. It is kind of minified and made lighter. So that is the difference between the bootstrap.css and the bootstrap.main.css, which is bootstrap minified.css. Okay. Please, is somebody saying something? Okay. All right. So let's go on. So we'll reference the Bootstrap, the minified version of Bootstrap, because we are not foreseeing making we are not going to make any changes in Bootstrap file itself. So I prefer we use the bootstrap.main.css. So that is our CSS. And so we have Bootstrap in there. Maybe we can test our Bootstrap. Normally, how I test my files, when I run the file, I use the debugging tool. I think I showed us where the debugging tool is. You click on the menu of your browser, you go to more tools, and then you select the developer tools. If you're on a Windows, it is Control-Shift-I. If you're on a Mac, it is Command-Shift-I. Give you the developer tools. So in the developer tools, you can drop down to see your files, to see everything that you are working on. The developer tools basically shows you your work. And so if you look at my developer tool, it's saying that my Bootstrap file cannot be found. And I'm wondering why my Bootstrap file cannot be found. And so give me a minute. Let me try and debug that. Okay. Okay. So for my assets, I enter my Bootstrap. Okay. Let me just confirm that I have all my spellings right. Okay, yes. I think I spelled the Bootstrap wrong. So when we are doing this, we have to be careful about spellings. I spelled the Bootstrap wrongly. That's why the Bootstrap was not coming. So this is the right Bootstrap spelling. Let me refresh. No, so let me close this. Let me refresh my page and let me debug, or let me run the page again. And holla, yes, so our Bootstrap is active. Any questions till now? We are good, I guess. Okay, so I would want us to do another thing. We created a CSS, a style page, which would be for any other CSS we'll be writing. And so we just create, currently we can create, it's just an empty file now. So we'll create a style inside our CSS folder, and we would have to link that one too. And so we would use the link tag. and then we would direct it to the CSS folder. So asset CSS, and inside the CSS, we are saying that there's a style sheet there. So style.css. So yes, that's it. So our CSSs are ready. I must say that Bootstrap also has JS, but because we are not doing anything JS for now, maybe I might not talk about it. Jed would talk about it when he's doing the Bootstrap, the JS. But I only want to, in terms of structure, I want to share something. You know, I said that most files or most libraries that we use are normally put in the head, but because of speed and latency issues now, I think developers have found a way to boost or increase speed. So, you know, HTML defaultly runs from top to bottom, or from the first tag down to the last tag. And so, for instance, if you are running this page, after it has run the HTML, it runs the head tag. That is why it's called the head. It runs the head tag. Even inside the head tag, it runs every tag one after the other. And so imagine that if these tags are huge, for instance, if this bootstrap.css is a huge one, it has to take time to run it and finish it before it comes to the CSS tag. And it has to go keep on. So imagine that you have HTMLs inside this body here that has to run. They have to wait in line till these ones are done. And now developers are saying that there are some resources that you do not really need them when you are running the pages at the start, especially JavaScript files, because nobody quickly runs a page and immediately you click the link, or you enter the link in the address bar of your browser, you start clicking for functions. No, normally you'd wait for the page to load. And even in loading, sometimes you take a few seconds to observe the page, to even look at the button you want to click before you click anything. And so what the standard way developers are doing is that instead of putting major JavaScript tags inside the head, they tend to put it below the body. So the script or JavaScript files would be below the body. So that's what they do now. All JavaScript files will be below here, so that if the page is running, because JavaScript files normally take time to load, all functions are supposed to run before. And if they are at the start of your page, your HTML would be slow. So you put it at the bottom where the CSS, which gives the beauty and the design, would have run for the HTML tags to show before JavaScript files will run. And so basically that's something I wanted to talk about, but we are not doing anything JavaScript now, so you can just comment it out. And so yeah,
I think someone is saying if you can slow down for her to catch up with what you like, the place that you are now.
okay, that's
So
fine.
if
Thank you very
we can slow down a little bit.
okay. Yeah, so oh, what's happening to my browser? Interesting. Yeah. So whilst we wait for yeah, please, sorry about that. I think my browser refreshed and had all my pages loading. So please, can we go on, or let's still wait a bit for Nafisa? No, I think who? So Amy, we are giving you about a minute to catch up. So whilst Amy is catching up, if there's any question, I'll be glad to hear from you. Please, is there any questions so far? It looks like we are all good. Okay. So please, can we proceed?
Sure.
I believe so. Okay. So yes. Oh, sorry. I think I had covered my page. Sorry. So basically, what we have done so far is we've just the standard HTML how do I even call it, the tags that we brought, and we've only added some meta tags. To one is a keyword and the other is to describe. Yeah, thank you very much. I've seen it, so I'm working on that. Yeah, so the other is to describe. Yeah, thank you. So we can go on. So we said we brought just some few keywords. To one is a keyword for search engines, the other describes our page. We've introduced some Bootstrap onto our page. We downloaded the Bootstrap. It's in our directory, so we have it there. And then we have added a default or a style sheet that we will be putting our CSS in there. So we are now about to really start what we want to do. And so I'm saying that because we've introduced Bootstrap, Bootstrap gives us the ability to put our stuffs in some already predefined containers or CSS containers. And I think I talked about container the last time. So we introduced a div. A div is an HTML tag, and so that's nothing to worry about. But then our div will have a class, and we are going to give it a Bootstrap class, and the class is called container. Class container or container fluid. And I think the last time I spoke about the two classes, I said we can either use a class of container or a class of container fluid. And I'm saying that the container fluid does not allow any space around our box or our div. So that's the difference. But when it's just a simple container, there's a little margin at the left and the right side of our box. So maybe I can demonstrate that. Let me give this container a border 1 pixel, solid black. And so this is a container fluid. And so if I run, maybe let me put some breaks inside. Yes. So if I run, you realize that there's no space. The box, it hits from the left to the right, it hits. But if I should take away this fluid and then leave the container just like that, it gives me that equal spaces on the side. So that is basically what the difference between the container and the container fluids. And these are standard Bootstrap classes. And that is because of some of these things. That is why we are bringing Bootstrap. And I said that Bootstrap also helps with responsiveness. So you see that our pages, the box is responsive. Like I said, even though we didn't use, okay, let me change back to the container. Even though we didn't use the container fluid, we just used the container. At a certain point, Bootstrap automatically, so you see, at the smallest screen, Bootstrap automatically adjusts and fills the entire screen for us because it knows that now our screen size is very small. And so there's no need, maintaining spaces around. But when we come back, the spaces appear. These are some of the things why we would want to use a pre-processed CSS so that we don't need to write. We could have written several lines of CSS to get this functionality, but with just one class, Bootstrap has already done that for us. So let me go back to our container fluid. That's what we'll be using for our work. Then I said we are going to borrow another thing from Bootstrap. That's the navigation bar. And so from the link that we downloaded Bootstrap, if I expand the link, they have a menu of some components that Bootstrap has done that we can just easily copy and plug in. And so when we come to components, there are a lot of them. And at the components tab, so just in case you don't have the link, it's Get Bootstrap 4. You can just Google Bootstrap 4. And then if you Google Bootstrap 4, Get Bootstrap 4 or Bootstrap 4, Get Bootstrap. So Get Bootstrap 4 or Bootstrap 4. It will be one of the first link. Anywhere you see Get Bootstrap.com, that's the official Bootstrap link. So you can copy that, and then that is where we downloaded our Bootstrap files. I think that by now everybody has had their Bootstrap files. All our Bootstrap files are working, because I think I'm just beating around the bush a bit so that we all come up to speed. So I believe by now all our files are up to speed. So yes, and I said we are going to copy something small from Bootstrap, and that is their navigation bar. So if you select the component section on the Bootstrap 4 page, look out for Navbar. So we are going to click the Navbar, and then we are going to copy the Bootstrap Navbar from there. So we'll paste it in our code. Please, whilst pasting it, kindly make sure that you keep your pages indented. So make sure, I think we've spoken about indentation. So keep your pages indented so that it will be easier for you to locate whatever file you want to, or the starting and the closing tag of each file. So we've copied the navbar, and I was saying that, you see, for instance, for many of us, we are not going to be full-time web developers, and so we don't need to spend time to write several lines of code to get some of the things that we want to do. So that is why we have Bootstrap there. We can just easily copy. There are a lot of these components, from tooltips to forms to cards to whatever. There are a lot of them that we can just copy. We need to just understand. We can just copy them and then we paste. So this is going to give us the Bootstrap nav. I think they have a picture of it. So this is it, as we can see. So when we run this on our page, we are supposed to get something like this. So let me save it, and then let me refresh our page. Okay, so maybe if you can't see, let me zoom my screen a little. Okay, if I zoom too much. Yes. So this is the navbar we copied. It is showing there. Now we are going to do a few changes to the navbar before we continue. First of all, I think the color of the navbar is a bit too plain, so we can change it. How do we change it? We can simply add CSS style to the navbar and give it a background color. It would work for us. But I don't like that because we are doing Bootstrap. Bootstrap has standard classes for colors. You realize that in the classes of your navbar, you have a class called navbar light, and then the background, the light. The light here is just the color. It's a class that gives a light color to your Bootstrap, and so we can change that to dark. We can change that for the navbar, and that's for the background color. So these classes are just colors. They have the light and the dark. They have primary, they are success, and then there are a whole lot of them. But for nav dark, it gives us that night mode color. So if we refresh, we see that automatically our page has changed. So I believe that we are following up to this stage. Okay, so let's continue. I think let's be quick, and then we'll do a few changes. Some of the links up there, I mean, we are not going to use all of them. So for instance, this drop down one is just to help us appreciate how our drop down menu is going to be like, but it's not something that we are going to use, especially when this particular one adds a bit of JS. And mind you, we are not doing any JS, and we don't even need the drop down at the moment. So we'll just comment it out of our code. There's the drop down. So you look for a closing tag, and then you just comment it. Mind you, you comment from the start tag to the closing tag. You can take it out, or you can just comment it out. So we take out the drop down. So yes, this disabled too, we don't like it, so we want to take it out. So we look for a start tag. If you are using, normally most text editors, once you select the beginning tag, it will kind of highlight the closing tag for you. So we'll copy from the beginning to the closing tag, and we'll take it off. You can comment it or take it away. And so what we'll do is we'll also change this link to any other link, navigation link we want to give our page. So let's say about. So we can give it about us. Maybe that is where you're going to put a link called about us. So aside that, now let's refresh. So yes, this is what we have. Okay, that's good. You realize that the name or the name of the web page here is Navbar. We don't want that because Navbar is not the name of our web page, and so we are going to change that. We are going to call ours, instead of Navbar, let's give it a name. I'll give mine Geospatial Developers. Geospatial Developers. Okay, let's refresh. So yes, the name has changed, and I want us to introduce one thing in here. It would be nice, most companies have logos, and so I want us to introduce a logo in this page. And so to introduce a logo, we are just first of all going to copy this A tag, because the logo is still supposed to be a link. So we'll copy this link. You can just select and copy this link, or simply we can just create a new one, because if you copy plenty, it makes us lazy. So let's create an A tag. We'll create an A tag, and then before we give it a link, we can put a hash sign in it at the moment. Now, hash in the href usually means that it should just reload. You don't have any link for it at the moment. So you can just put in a hash if you don't have a link for the anchor tag at that particular moment. Now we'll give this anchor tag a link, a class, sorry. And so we are going to give it a class, the same class, Navbar brand, because the Navbar brand class means that it's just our brand, a logo, or the name of our company. And then inside, and please, I believe we are following. I hope no one is lost. Okay. Then inside the Nav brand, we are going to introduce an image or our logo. Our logo is an image. And so I'll bring in our image tag here. the image tag is img. So we'll bring in the image tag, and we have to reference our image there. So for me, I've already added an image to my work. And so if you don't have a logo, you can just download any image that you know. Preferably the image should be a square, so that if it is not a square, then you have to write CSS to style it. But if you can get a square image, just copy any image and then bring it into your document. We have already talked about how we should arrange our page. So I'll remove this image here and take it into my asset folder. Even in my asset folder, it has to fall into the image folder, img folder, inside my asset folder. So yes, I have it here. I can change its name to logo.jpg instead of this. So this is my image tag, which is inside my assets folder and inside the folder img. So I'm going to reference that in the image class that I've created. So this is my image, and the src, I'm going to give it folder assets, and then inside the asset folder, it should locate the img folder, and it should locate the file which is logo.jpeg. That's the extension. Yes. And then because I don't know the size of the image that is coming, and I don't want the size to be more than what I'm doing, I'll give it a height of 40 pixels. And so I'm going to do another inline CSS. You can choose to do the 10 now, but let me because it is just one CSS, I'll do it inline, and I'll give it a height of, let's say, 40 pixels. Mind you, whatever height you give it, at the end of the day, if you run, you should be able to. So let's run so that we see what we've done so far. Okay. So far, this is what we have done. Are we good? Please, can I get some feedback? Are we okay?
Yes, sir. We are.
Or is it plenty? Is it too much to take?
Okay.
Okay. So let's continue. Now we have our image. If you look at our page, you realize that even though containers don't allow margins, they allow some little paddings in there. And we spoke about margin and paddings. We see margins are spaces outside a certain box, spaces that are outside and around a certain box. And paddings are spaces that are inside the box. And so this is a padding which is inside our container. That is why our navbar is non-patent. But it would be nice if the navbar is not having any space. So to do that, we can give our container a style. We can first of all check. So we'll still use the developer tool to check. So we click on the icon that I've hovered on. It's called the inspect tool. So when you click it and it's active, you see a light blue. Anywhere you click on the page, the code side will go to, like that side will be shown in the code. So when we click it, so we realize that this is what is giving us the space there. It's the class fluid. And as we can see, container fluids, they have a padding of, the right padding is 15, and the left padding is also 15. So that is what is giving us that space. So to take that off, we have to write a CSS to override this 15 pixels that is there. So we can just simply give a padding and say it should have a padding of 0 pixels, and that would solve the problem. So when we refresh, realize that the space is closed. And so basically, this is our nav. You realize that because of Bootstrap, automatically it minimizes or it gives us a responsive page. And so our menu is arranged responsively in there. So even though we are not doing JS, I said earlier that some Bootstrap files, they need JS to work. So please permit me, let me introduce one JS, that is the Bootstrap JS, because so that you can appreciate some of the things that I'm doing better. So let me introduce assets. This is not part of it, but so asset, and then we'll enter the Bootstrap folder, Bootstrap folder. We'll enter the JS. We would enter the JS. Sorry, inside the Bootstrap JS, and then we'll look for this bootstrap.main.js file. So inside the JS, and then we'll reference the bootstrap.main.js. So let's save it. Let's refresh our page, and then let's see if our JS is referenced. Open a new tab. No, our JS is not referenced. So I'm sure I've had some typo somewhere.
The Bootstrap is not coming. Spelling of the Bootstrap.
Come again.
The spelling of the first Bootstrap.
I don't know why I keep getting the spelling for Bootstrap wrong, but that's that. So let's check. Still okay. So I'll just rather copy the spelling straight and put it there. Okay, I think we are good to go now. So let me refresh. Let me check if the JavaScript is back. So yeah, so when we minimize, we try to minimize or check the responsiveness. It's going to minimize everything for us according to our screen size. So as we increase, it will also increase. That's the power of Bootstrap. That is why we are using Bootstrap. Other than that, we would have just, written our CSS and everything just like that. So please, let's continue with that page. So now we are done with the navigation. We are entering the actual parts of the map where we are going to have our map. And please, are we good so far? Are we good so far? Can we proceed? Is anybody having a question so far? Or is anybody catching up? Or is anybody lost somewhere? So I can proceed, right?
Yes, sir, you can proceed.
Okay. All right. So now let's bring our actual page. And so for our actual page, we are going to start another day below our Navbar. And because we are using Bootstrap now, every div of ours will come with a class. And we spoke about the Bootstrap grade system. And we talked about grade system where we said that Bootstrap would divide pages into 12 different sections. And the grade system is not in there, but we said that Bootstrap would divide pages into 12 different columns. And so we can use classes to specify which columns we want and what positions we want the columns to fall in. And so we are going to use that same thing we talked about. But this time we want all the columns. So we can specify by using the class, and then we specify the kind of screen that column should be. So maybe we can do a large screen or even a medium screen, because medium is in between. So we do a medium screen. So we want all the 12 columns. So yes, I did. And I'm saying that every div or every default Bootstrap comes with a little a 15 pixel padding. And so we don't want that padding. We'll take that padding off by giving the padding of 0, so that there'll be no space inside. So that's our box. This box, we've not put anything in there. So even if we refresh, nothing is going to show. But then trust me, our box is there. You can debug if we debug. So this is our box. Yeah, it's in there. If we give it a border here, it will show. So okay, I think it's right below the navbar. So if I give it a green color, well, I think it's showing here, but we may not see it. That's fine. That's not what we are doing. So yes, our box is there. Now we are going to define the map, the box that is going to show the map itself. And so we'll create another div. So this is our map box. And so we are going to give it a class and an ID. And we say that our class will be a class box. And the ID, which is supposed to be unique for just the map, I'm going to name it map. Please believe we are good so far. Now we can start doing some CSS. And so let me introduce our first CSS. Where's our CSS sheet? This is it, start.css. I said that, I remember the last time I was also saying that for those who are using Sublime text, you can just drag the folder into your Sublime text, and it would give you the directories on the right side, so that it will be easier to navigate in between them when you are working on them. So we are introducing our first style. Oh, I think, sorry, the style is there, but we can just take it off and then do it again. So I think we spoke about the first one. We're saying that in default all maps, we don't want to allow scrolls inside our map. So for instance, if you have a map, and then the map, wants the map to fit the remaining component of the page. And so we said that there's a CSS for that, which is the calculate function. And so we spoke about that. So this is how the calculate function is. You define what you want to, the selector, which is the height property. And then we introduce the calculate function. And we are saying that defaultly, because of HTML5, every HTML page has a viewport. And this viewport is more like in percentage-wise, the percentage of either the dimension that you are talking about. So if you are talking about width, the viewport for width is VW, and VW is defined in terms of 100%. So if I set a view of let's say 20 VW, I mean 20% of the entire width of the document. So it doesn't matter the screen you are on. That is the beauty of the viewport. First, if you set pixels, pixel will be constant across the various screens. So pixel for a medium screen, if I set 20 pixels, 20 pixels will be the same for medium screen, large screen, no matter the kind of screen. 20 pixels is 20 pixels. But then if I set a viewport and I say a width of 20 VW, it means that 20% of the width of the screen. So it will be different across 20% of a medium screen. It's not the same as 20% of a large screen. And equally is the same with height. For height, it is VH. And so we're saying that our CSS should calculate 100% of the page. That is the entire height of the page. And we are saying that even though we want to use the entire height of the page, we know that there's already a navbar that is there. And we don't want our map hidden under the navbar. We want to subtract the height of the navbar from the entire height of the screen. And so we found the height of the navbar by debugging it. So we debugged it, and then we're able to tell, if you go to the bottom, we're able to tell that it's about 3 pixels with some padding in there. And so we said that we give it a room, a plus or minus of 56 pixels. So if you are subtracting 56 from the entire height of the screen, it should give us the remaining height of the page. If we, without the remaining height of the page minus the navbar. So that's what we've done for the height. I think we will check it. And to be on the safer side, let's get a background so that we can see. And let me change before I use the EE. Let me do a red so that it will stand out. Okay. Yes. But as you can see, my calculation, it seems my calculation didn't really work because there's a little scroll. So I can still increase my margin here. Let's say 8. There's still some scroll in there. So let me do 60 pixels first. And let me see. Okay. Now I have to debug and find out why the heights change. So you see, when you are designing things like that, they are not really cast in stone. There's a bit of things that are affecting your code. So sometimes constantly you need to be debugging and to be knowing what, so that you can know what is happening. Now, it seems I did wrong math. Now you see, the height of the navbar itself is 50 pixels, but then it has a padding of 8 at the top and 8 at the bottom. And so it's even 8, 50 plus 8 is 58, plus this 8 is around 66. And so the height of the entire thing is supposed to be 66 and not 56 like I thought. So if I do 66, it's supposed to take away the scroll that we have. So now our scroll is gone because we don't want the scroll there. If you are okay with the scroll, you can just leave everything like that, and then work. Other people too will choose to keep it at 100% and rather make the navbar float on the map. That's also another way of doing it. But then that it means that there will be some space of the map up there that will be covered by the navbar, but we don't want that. So basically, that's what we'll change our background back to EE. EE is a bit dull for us, and that will work. Please, I believe we are following. If you are lost, I can help out. But I'll still share the code at the end of the lesson. I'll share the entire document there. You can copy it and then we'll continue from there. So let's go back to our page. Now we have our map box set. And let's do one last thing. Now we are doing the last thing and then we'll leave it there. So we want to introduce something they call a switch box. If I go to Bootstrap 4, we have switches. And I don't know if I can even find where will they be. I think they'll be at either forms or inputs, one of them. Switches, forms, or inputs. So normally switches are a way to turn on or off, like on and off buttons. They are basically radio buttons, but they are more like styled radio buttons. They give you like a better feel, a better look. They are, sorry, I was trying to look for switches, but just in case I can't find them, that's fine. We can go on without them. Switch. Fine. Let's proceed. That's fine. So we want to introduce switch. These switches are going to control the layer that we bring on the map. And so to do that, let's introduce a card, a div, and then we are going to give this div a class called card. Now, card is also a Bootstrap function, and we can see card here. Basically, it gives you more like, just like we have complementary cards, it gives you a box with some maybe styling around it. So we are going to give it a class of card. You can check the full implementation of card even with the get Bootstrap component. Then you have the syntax and everything that you can learn about them. So we are going to give our div a class of card. Then let's give it a little star. So we'll go to our CSS page, and this is coming. But okay, so we'll go to our CSS page and then input the class. So we'll say class, the class card, and let's give it a rounded corners. So to give a rounded corners, we have a property called border radius. Then we'll give it a border radius of, let's say, how much do we even give? How much? Let's say 8 pixels. Okay, 8 pixels. And let me give it a background color. And background yellow. Now let me try and refresh it. Okay. So it has not appeared, but it will come. So I didn't save my box. Let me put in some breaks. I think our time is up, but we'll be running. Will be coming up soon. So yes, this is my card, and that is where I'm going to put my layers. But even before the card, now let me introduce a mother div so that will house my card. And this div, let me call toolbox. Okay, because I want to regulate the width of the card, and so I'm introducing a mother div that will control the card in a way. And so the toolbox, let me give this toolbox a CSS. So I give it a class, a CSS class of toolbox, and in the style for toolbox, because the time a bit spent, I'll move a bit faster so that we can, after I'll share the codes. So let me give it a width so that it doesn't cover the entire width of the map. So let's take a width of 200 pixels. And then I have to give it a height too. So, but then the height, I'm not going to define as a fixed height. So I'm going to give it a minimum height. Minimum means that if there's nothing at all, the least height it should have is 200 pixels. So it shouldn't be less than 200 pixels. It should be 200 pixels or more. And then I'm going to give this one a position. Because already there's a map and I don't want it, I want to more like give it an assigned position. I want it to lay on a certain part of the map. So I have to define that its position should be absolute. Now there are 4 properties of positions. They have the relative, they have the absolute, they are fixed, and then they have initial. Initial is like the default position. Relative means that it should take the position of the mother. So if the mother is relative, it will take it. If the mother is that's initial. Relative is that it should follow the default way we know position to be, like it should just follow through. So if there's one at the top, it should wait and come second, or it should just lie as to where it's supposed to be. And fixed means that it override all other positions. So even if it is inside the box, it should not respect the mother. It should just come out and be autonomous on its own. Then we have the absolute. Absolute means that we are giving it some freedom, but then its freedom should not exceed the limit or the boundaries its parent HTML tag is given. So if you look at this toolbox, if we are giving it an absolute, it will mean that yes, even though we are giving you an absolute, you cannot exceed the boundaries of the mark box. So this absolute toolbox cannot come inside the navigation menu because it is absolute, even though it has the freedom to fall any position we place it inside here. So that's the position absolute. And then you're going to, because now that we define the position absolute, we are going to assign it to a certain position. And so we are going to use the CSS property left, meaning that it should be at the left. And then we'll give it some dimensions to 10 pixels from the left. That is where this box should be. I can refresh what we've done so far, and you see that the box is at the top. And it is there because we don't have any content in it. Let me introduce some page breaks like I usually do so that we have some spaces in there, then you can appreciate it. Okay, so I can even also say that the position that there should be some small spaces between the navbar and this. So I can do that by giving it a top 2. So just as I gave it a left of 10 pixels, I can give it a top 10 pixels too, and there will be 10 pixel spaces. So you see some small space at the top. Yes. And then I can give it a background color. So I don't like the yellow that I gave for the card. So I'll take this card away. But then mind you, the card is a chart. So I can still give the mother parent a background of white. FFF is white. That's the color hex code for white. And then let me give it one last thing, a small border. Let me give it a border of 1 pixel solid, and let me give it maybe a dull shade of ash. So I'll take out this radius and let me give it to the parent. So as the background, I don't need a background. So now I'm giving everything to the parent now. So if I refresh, so this is our box, and we have our card inside that box. Okay, that's nice. So now let's now begin to populate our box. Inside our box, and let me, for the meantime, okay, for the card to be autonomous, let's still give it a background of white. And then let me remove any border that is there. That the card wouldn't really show a border because I don't like the way the border is appearing. I mean, this particular border, this is from the card. I don't really like it. So I give a border of 0 pixels so that the border wouldn't show. Okay, that's good. So let's begin to populate our card. Now, the reason why we are using card because defaultly cards come with other properties that we can. They have card headers, card bodies. They have a header, they have a footer that we can use. So that's why we are using card. So we'll give it a header. Okay, we had 2 cards in there. That's why we're having that issue. So now let me close this rather. Yeah. So that I can take away the classes inside box. Okay. Now let me refresh with my page. Refresh. Okay. And it's still there. So later debug and find out why my card is giving me those issues. Then I can hide them now. So now let me introduce. And please, I'm moving a bit faster, but I'll put in the code so that we can just check and be checking from our end. Now let me introduce. Please kindly follow and understand what I'm doing so that you can look at the code. If you can also follow as fast as you can, that's fine. So now we'll introduce our layers too. That is the last thing we are doing. And so to do the layers, let's introduce a div. and give a class of card header. This is where we are going to put the name of our class in there. So this is the head, just like we know every head to do. And let's call it maybe two stroke legend box. So this is our heading. Okay, have our heading in there. And then let's introduce one which will be the body of our card. And I'm sure you are familiar with heads and bodies and stuff. We know what they mean. So let's get a class and let's call it card body. Okay, and in the card body, now we are going to introduce our switches. So we are going to do the label and then introduce switches in it. So we'll use an HTML tag, and I think we talked about it when we're doing URL. So URL is for an ordered list because the switches are going to be in list. Definitely, we are not going to stick to one switch. There's going to be maybe boundaries, layers. So we are using an ordered list. We know that every unordered list comes with the list items themselves. So we can, sorry, not the link, the list item tag themselves. So we can have the list items themselves, and we can have as many as we want. So let's take the two. So we are going to give this list a class. Even before, we are going to give our URL a class too. Now we are going to use Bootstrap classes for that. And for Bootstrap, if you go, I was trying to look for the switches. Now there's a list. There's it's called list group item. It basically means that all the subsequent items that list item tags that will come, they are in a certain group, so you should be treated as a group. And for the group, this is the mother. So list group, first of all, we create a class of this group, and we see that we are using the list group flash. So these things that I'm using, they are basically how do you call it, Bootstrap tags, and so we can just also reference them when we are using them. And then once we have the mother, which is a list group, the child is going to be a list group item. So that's a child. So now we can begin to enter. We can begin to enter our things into the list group. And so for the list group, we are going to have a label in it. The label is going to house the content. So let's say we have a label of region layer, or maybe I just layer 1 so that we know that it's a layer. So layer 1. Now refresh and let's see where we got into for now. So yes, we have a list called layer 1. So after we would style our things properly. Okay, so we have layer 1, and let's see what we'll do for layer 1. In layer 1, let's introduce the switches. Now the switches is what we use to turn on or off. On or off. It's like an on, or it's like a button which turns on or off. And so let me put this layer 1 outside so that it doesn't interfere with mine. Now in my switches are made from inputs. So we can do an input tag, and then let's introduce a span. So we are going to style the input so that it acts like a switch. So our input is going to be a checkbox instead of a radio button so that you can check many at a time. I think we've done input checkboxes. So for that, we are familiar. And now we're going to use a Bootstrap class called sources. Now, class sources for Bootstrap is just basically giving it a color of green. You know, mostly defaultly green is used when something has been successful, and danger is used when something is red. And Bootstrap would use info to depict a color of yellow. So anytime you see these classes or you see anything with any class with danger sources yellow attached to it, it's just red, yellow, green like that. So we'll give it a class of sources, and then we'll give our span a class of slider round. I think I'm moving fast, but I don't know. Does anybody have a question up to now? Is anybody having a question? So now, so the things I've done, basically this is what we have now. So this is but we are going to style it so it would appear better. I want to do this in the next 15 minutes so that we can close quickly. So yes, these are all we need in terms of HTML, and this is what we have. We are just going to use a little CSS to style this thing to get the right design that we want. So to do that, first of all, remember that we have a CSS called slider. And so let's start styling our switches. I think even before we do that, our label should have a class of switch so that we can identify. Let's give the label a class, call it class switch, so that we can identify the label. So now let's start styling our switches. Now let's do it in our style class. First of all, our style, that is the parent, which is the switch. For the switch, because the mother is, let's give it a position. Because the mother is an absolute position, let's say that, let's give it a position of relative. Let's give it a position of relative so that it doesn't act like the way its mother, we gave the mother an absolute. So we don't want the baby switch to be acting the same. He should stay in line. So we want it in line. So let's give it that. And then let's give it a display to see that all switches should align, should stay in line. We can give it a width of 46 pixels, or maybe 46 is okay. Then we can give the height. We can give it a height of, let's say, 19 pixels. Okay? 19 pixels is fine. And then you see, it is already at right, but we want it to stay at extreme right. And so we'll allow it float. And we'll say to float to the right so that the labels will stay at the left. Okay. So now the switches. Let's refresh what we've done so far. So you see, it just added a little space. We will get there. It would fall in line. Let me give it a margin to reduce. So the bottom should have a margin of 0 pixels. Now let me refresh. Okay. So yes, that's for the switch. Now after the switch, the switches, the switch is the mother label. If you remember, now our switch here That is the mother label. So now we are entering into the input tag and the span tag to do it. And so we'll say that because there might be several inputs in a page, we want to identify the right input. So we'll say that the input that belongs to the class switch. So if you enter the class switch, let's look for the input tag inside there, and then let's give it a class. Let's give it some styling, and we just need it to display full, no issue. So we are done with the input. Now let's move on to the next. Okay, so now we'll style the span. The span has a slider called round, a class called slider. So let's also style it. Now for the slider, first of all, we have to position it. And so please, after I'm going to share this so that we can follow through. So let me refresh. It's a bit high, but we'll work towards it. Then let me, because it's absolute, let me define where it should lie. I say it should lie at the top, very top, 0. And then I'll say, let me give it a small background color so that it stands out. Okay. And then there's a CS, when you click, that's, I want some style, some animation, simple animation. And to do that, we can give it CSS as a property called transition. And so I'm going to give it the CSS property transition so that it animates when it is clicked. And we are going to see the animation when I'm done. So it's supposed to animate. Sorry, the animate is supposed to animate for that is move for 4 seconds. So for animation, it has a lot to do with various screens. So I'm doing it for Chrome and any other screen that it gets. Yeah. So basically that will be for the slider. Okay. So now there are a few CSS that I need to enter. In the next 15 minutes, I'll be done, and then we can now discuss, or we can follow the step, look through all that I've done. The slider, still on the slider, the class slider. Let me give the class slider so I'll say that there's a CSS property called before. Now, before is more like preceding. It's a CSS, so we are saying that this style should precede the slider style itself. And so we are going to give it a before, and the before should also have a position. Now, for sliders, we could have simply copied Bootstrap slider, but I wanted a little custom slider. That is why I'm writing a lot of CSS for this. But you see, that is why Bootstrap makes things a bit easier. If I had simply copied the Bootstrap slider, I would have been saved of all these CSS that I'm writing. But because I want it custom and I want it in a certain kind of way, I have to stick to all these styles that I'm writing now. And you see, as I'm writing these styles, they might not make sense now, but it's because this one is just like I know what I actually want to achieve. And so because I know that it's easier for me to write those CSS, I think it would be good if I can give you a pictorial. I can find the class and the switch, what I want to achieve by the switch. Maybe that will make you understand better what I'm doing. Other than that, it would be a bit abstract to you until I'm done. So, where are switches? Okay, since switches won't show up today, but I think they're supposed to be around where you have the forms. That's where switches are. We decided to go hiding today, but that's fine. No, they are supposed to be somewhere down in here. Okay, let me finish with my CSS. So I'll give it a left to.
It's a bit below the radio checkboxes. When I search, I found it in forms. Yeah.
Please, somebody is saying something. I can't get you.
Yeah, I was just saying that it's a little bit below switches. Actually, it's a bit below radios and checkboxes in forms. A bit up.
Come again.
It's a little bit.
It's a little below what?
Check boxes, radio button inside of forms.
Forms.
Yeah, you were already in there.
Oh, I don't know. Is it my end? I don't seem to really hear you. But then let me just finish.
My microphone is behaving strange, maybe. I was saying that it's inside of forms, but it's a little
maybe
bit.
Can you put it in the chat for me?
Yes.
So that I can hear you. Can you put it in the chat for me?
Okay.
So yes. Oh, okay, the radio buttons. It's below the radio buttons, huh? But then I saw the radio, so these are all radio buttons and checkboxes. So forms, and then so these are the checkboxes, and these are the these are the radios. Anyway, but nevertheless, let me finish with mine, and then we can quickly wrap up from here. I think it's been quite a long day. So let me just copy. Okay. So I think maybe let me just concentrate and then finish with this class. Then I can explain what I have done here so that you would understand. And that will be a bit quicker. But like I said, some of these things, for CSS, you just once you understand the tags and the concepts and the properties that I'm writing, you see, it has to come. It's more like you are painting, and so you are adding style, and so the style is how you perceive the thing. That is the style you write. But then if you paint and somebody stands somewhere and look at the colors that you've done, the person might now get the concept or where you are coming from. So that's what CSS does. So yes, I know. I mean, as I'm writing a lot of styles like that, so for some it might be a bit abstract, but if you remember the tags we've talked about, and then you can look at the tags and then understand what each of the tags is supposed to do, you might begin to appreciate these things. So let me do a bit WebKit. I need a CSS WebKit. So let me do the WebKit for CSS WebKit transformation instead of transition. So please, I'll be done shortly. Transformation, and then for transformation, I'll be doing a transition. No, sorry, a translation. Translate. Text of 26 pixels. So these things I'm all doing, they are all CSS properties. They are just CSS properties for styling, for animation. So they just add animation. They don't really change anything. They just add animations to the page, and they make work your work a bit nicer. So then the last set of CSS I'll be writing. Let me do that quickly. So now I'll set around colors. And this is also supposed to be a class. And then let me define the round and give it a border radius because it's supposed to be round box. Border radius. Let me give it a border radius of let's say, I think I gave 34. So please, I'll be done and I'll explain these things shortly. Okay, that's fine. Border pixels of 34. I need to give it a before and after CSS property. So the before should have a border radius 2 of 50. And then finally the list group items. The list group item. So also it comes to repeat how Bootstraps and those already processed CSS makes our life easier. I mean, they save us from a lot of code. But I mean, if you want to take the path of a developer, sometimes you have to go through these things. But ideally, these things if they are already in Bootstrap, and I could have just copied them and then used them. But here I am writing a lot of code for these things, but then it makes sense. So okay, so our input slider before should have a background color. Of show the background color. Let's see, what code should I give it? Okay, let's try to okay. Into the check. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yes, I think so. Let me refresh and see. Okay, it's my CSS picking at all. So my CSS is not. Let me go back and see if my style. That CSS is going to okay. All my CSS are working. So then why So let me debug. Okay, the switch is blocked. Input type. So I realized that apart from the switch, no other CSS is working. Okay. So go to my page and then let me find out. So that's a list group. And please, I'm coming. I think I've had an error somewhere. The list group. List group item. Okay. So if this is working. Okay. So if I check my CSS, okay, the classes for this are working. And I have switch inputs. Okay. So now for this header, please be down. You know, CSS can be. And then I'll give it all the properties. So the right of 0 pixels, which is the same as 0 anyway, and the bottom of 0 as well. So if I give it this, it's a background and a transition, which is true, and this as an absolute. Okay. You know why? In the web kit. So I think on course. Okay, my focus. Social right. Okay. My translate is also right. I will put the reverse. The translate. I will put the reverse here. It's also okay. But there is a 34 pixels. But there is of okay, so this one should be in percentage. So please, I think I had error somewhere. I want to make sure that all is right. I have a border radius. I have an input. Okay. So I think this input. Okay. Okay. Yes. So I'm heading somewhere now. Okay. So I think this input with the property default check should have a slider, and then this background should be. So I think. All right. It makes sense. So.
Default has an error. I mean,
yeah, please put your saying something.
Yes, I said that default is spelled wrong.
I don't know if it's just me, but when you are speaking, the line breaks. But I think I'm almost through. I'm almost through. So the last code is sources, which is what we actually want. So the property check plus slider should give us a color of, let's say, green. Okay. So still our code didn't come. Okay, default was spelled wrong. I think that's it. So default, but I don't think the default is the property because we don't have any class of default. So guys, once you start this journey, even though I've done this, you know, CSS is also not, most of the time it's not straight jacket. So as a developer, you have to be willing to debug, do the debugging, and then always find out why codes are not working. So for that, we should be ready to do. Unfortunately, maybe we might be working in time with time, and we don't have the time to do it. But once we decide, especially with this, that we are developing something on the fly like that, we have to get it done. Other than that, we could just simply copy this from Bootstrap, and then we'll have it working in Bootstrap. But I wanted us to go through. We could have just simply copied this code from, if you go to Google and do Bootstrap for switches, we could have just simply copied it from there. But I would have still want to have mine work from scratch, then I've explained. But I realized that time is also far spent. So before check, I think I might have done some wrong spelling somewhere, and that's costing me. So I might have done some wrong spelling somewhere. Okay. I think we are still making some headway. I think I might have introduced a lot of typos in there, and these typos in CSS is what is costing me. But okay, let me see if the Bootstrap switches are done. I can search for switches here. Okay, it still takes me to the form. I'm supposed to have switches. Then I'll just copy them. And I know our time, but we'll get there soon. I need to just cross check something from. Okay, I even forgot there's a way to find in here. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for. Wow, see. So yes, this is a typical switch, Bootstrap switch, and this is what I've been looking for all along. And I struggle to find them, but this is how Bootstrap switches are. And now with all the work that I've done, I don't know if I should just replace this switch with mine and then forget, I mean, where I've come from. But anyway, it's just part of the job.
Eugene, so I think we should use that of the Bootstrap.
Come again?
I'm thinking we should use the Bootstrap. I think that would be
easier. Use that of Bootstrap.
Yeah.
Okay, but we can still do that. Wow. We can still do that, but I'll debug mine and then I still share that. So where's the Bootstrap one? I think a lot of my CSSs will be affecting the Bootstrap switches we've done. So let me comment out my CSSs. Oh. Okay. So because of time, what we'll do is for now, we can label this as our layers. Layers. So this will be a layer 1, this will be layer 2. And then okay. And I think I got everything right. But, okay. Okay, the other one is disabled. So this one is disabled. Okay, so layer control layer. Okay, sorry. One is supposed to be of a different ID. So layer 2. Other than that, they are radio buttons. I think it's that one for layer 2. So okay, switches are radio by default. So that's also one. Okay. Okay, so people, I think it's this. Our time is fast spent. There's one last thing that we're supposed to do, that is style our switches. But I don't think most people will go over. But I'll do the right switches, and then I'll put them in our Telegram group, and maybe I can just assist everybody to get it done from there. So maybe this is where we'll bring our class to an end for CSS and Bootstrap, and then Jed would continue from this page. So basically what we've done is, if you look at our page, the section where my mouse is hovering, if I should change the color, that is going to be what is the map? That is what we call map. So if I change the color to maybe yellow, that is going to be where our JavaScript map will fall. And so when we are doing JavaScript and leaflets, this area is going to be mapped like this. We are going to have a base map, and then our tools are going to be in this box that you can turn on or off to toggle whatever layer you want to turn on or off. So this is where we'll end our class for HTML and CSS. I'll put the codes in the page so that we can download. Okay. Thank you very much, Ernest. So please, I'll open up for any question. I'll open the floor for questions, please. Please, are there questions?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Coffee, I can hear you.
Okay, so I changed my microphone. So I was just asking in the chat, since we are using Bootstrap 4.0, and actually the switch code that we found is 4.2. Was that a problem? The class is defined there, maybe?
I can't hear Kofi.
Okay, you cannot hear me, then I have to write.
So yeah, the question is, he's saying that since the Bootstrap you referenced is Bootstrap 4, and now the switches that
it's Bootstrap 2.
Yeah, okay. Bootstrap 4.2.
Yeah, I think I didn't even notice. That. So I've already referenced Bootstrap 4. I should have found for switches in here. I didn't notice that myself. Well, I think yes, it makes sense. I didn't notice that myself because I could have just located switches in here. If I go to components and then okay. But I still think that time is also fast spent, and so we'll just do the right thing and then we'll paste it in a group so we can follow through. Yeah, but basically the basics of what we are doing is what we've done, and we just need to add a few styling to these switches so that they become a bit nicer, like the modern Bootstrap switches that we want. But we have our pages in the future we can add links so that these pages would, navigate to different pages. We have our search, and our map component is going to be at this area. So that is what we are going to start with. You can change the dynamics to something that will suit your taste. But thank you, Kofi. So in the background, I'll do those changes and then I'll upload them on the system. Okay, so I think there are no feedback today. Today has been a lot of codes, I guess. So thank you, everybody. Ernest, I want to leave it over to you.
Thank you very much, Eugene. And I think today the questions are not coming, but I'm sure it's two things. It's either they understood or they are confused. But please, as I always say, if you are confused, try as much as possible to hit any of us up. We'll try as much as possible to help you catch up with the class. So tomorrow there wouldn't be class. So tomorrow, same time, you can hit any of us up to help you if you are struggling getting what he taught today. He's going to post the HTML, the app, the whole folder that he used for today's session in the Telegram group, so that if you were not able to catch up with him, you can just continue from there. And everything that we'll be building for the program will be based on this skeleton, what he has taught you today. Yeah, so let's try as much as possible to understand whatever he taught. God willing, next week, this Friday, Jedediah will take over with the JavaScript. Then, yeah, we'll move on to the next phase of the training. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening. Stay blessed. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Good night.